let's kick us off with a segment then. So, folks, yesterday, an aircraft flying into Washington, D.C. from Kansas collided with a helicopter. And I believe the current casualty list is 67 people dead. And it's a pretty huge tragedy. Now, of course, multiple politicians have come forward with a prevailing idea of what caused the accident. And this is Donald Trump, the president of the United States. Weird. Giving his theory.
Office, they put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program. Then another article, the Federal Aviation Administration, this was before I got to office, recently, second term. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine? These are people that are, actually their lives are shortened because of the stress that they have. Brilliant people have to be in those positions, and their lives are actually shortened, very substantially shortened because of the stress, where you have many, many planes coming into one target. Office, they put a...
Yeah, so, Donald Trump's prevailing theory is that having diverse employees at the FAA is what caused the crash. Because, again, in case it's not clear what they're saying when they say this, they're saying that certain groups of people are just naturally inferior at being, an air traffic controller, for example, and their inferior ability that is infecting these workplaces is causing deadly accidents. He's saying that, obviously non-white people are not as good as white people doing the job, and that means, that they're causing horrific accidents. He's passing the blame onto marginalized communities. Okay? And of course, it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. All right? The people that have been confirmed so far involved in this incident, who were in positions to maneuver these crafts, seem to have all have been white. Okay? So, I'm not entirely sure where Donald Trump is placing the blame here. Unless, there's some super secret information he knows about how the dastardly FAA hired inexperienced or, incapable air traffic controllers. But I'm going to put forward here that he does not, in fact, have secret information to that effect. And instead, I am going to put forward an alternate theory, which is, I think, a lot simpler than alluding to some kind of weird liberal conspiracy to weaken air traffic controllers. And my theory is that air traffic controllers are just hugely overworked. They are overworked. They are understaffed. They don't have union representation. It seems like things are not going so great for them ever since Ronald Reagan broke their union. And you might think, well, okay, but how bad could it be? Well, thankfully, More Perfect Union actually put together a little training video for us, a little primer on what exactly the working conditions of an air traffic controller are. So let's check that out, shall we?
On February 4th, 2023, a plane from Southwest came within 100 feet of a FedEx plane in Austin.
Southwest aboard. FedEx is on the go.
Just over a week after that, a plane from Spirit Airline came within 200 feet of a cargo plane in Miami. The New York Times released an investigation that showed that these almost collisions, known as near misses, were happening multiple times a week, more than 500 in the previous year. Each one of those could have resulted in hundreds of deaths. Each one of these was because of a minor but potentially catastrophic error made by an air traffic controller. Being an air traffic controller is one of the most high-stakes and stressful jobs you can have. We talk to workers who are watching out for millions of us every day to find out who's watching out for them. First, let's talk about what air traffic controllers actually do. You've maybe flown dozens of times in your...
Okay, I think you all understand what air traffic controllers do. All right.
Last summer, yes, 6 months ago, we got an email from a burner account. It was an air traffic controller in the Northeast. We'll call her Megan. This was just a few days after the New York Times investigation was released.
Hey,
I
Bahamas
called the
vengeance.
ATC. She didn't want to go on the record. It was Labor Day weekend, in a year of historic strikes and union actions that More Perfect Union had been covering. But here I was talking to a person who didn't feel like she could speak up about her job. So we started looking for someone else who would talk. First, I tried reaching out to air traffic controllers on Reddit, where ATCs talk about their work, joke, complain, ask for advice, and found out that they were not happy about the coverage. The New York Times had exposed a few ATCs by name from classified FAA documents.
Doxing controllers now? What the fuck, Emily?
Inley Steele is one of the Times investigative reporters who's been covering the FAA.
Good
This is
job,
why
New York
when
Times.
a reporter asks you for anything, you shut the fuck up and refer them to your manager or your union.
Wow, good luck getting any controller to ever talk to you again.
Okay, fair enough. For every close call, there is an incident report. These reports are littered with clues as to what's happening in control towers.
I was too busy to keep watching it. Another example of why short staffing is a safety issue.
Our mental health is suffering with the extra stress and close calls like this.
This could have easily been an aircraft accident report.
We're having our evening rush on crack.
Yeah, so keep in mind, basically their job is to ensure that people don't die. You know, it's literally life or death stakes for them to be paying attention, right? And that is a lot of stress for anyone to shoulder. And one would think, maybe we should have enough air traffic controllers so that, you know, they can take bathroom breaks and such. That might be nice, actually.
We are currently in a
I can
staffing
barely
hole.
work it sometimes, which is why I'm filling out this report.
It's not that we don't have skilled and qualified people. We have skilled and qualified people that don't want to do these jobs. We have lost a lot of experienced air traffic controllers, and the ones that are still on the job are under tremendous stress.
Yeah, there's currently a shortage of like an absurd number of air traffic controllers. Oh man, what is the number, Quigley? Yeah, shortage of 300,000 air traffic controllers. That is a lot. We need a lot more of them, actually.
I finally did get a few people to talk to me anonymously, and they confirmed what Bill said.
Mostly controllers are just fatigued. With a lot of the mistakes happening, I think it's not a far leap to attribute those mistakes to the decade-plus run of facilities using overtime as a crutch for staffing. We are currently in a staffing hole, and they aren't even hiring enough controllers to keep up with attrition.
ATCs report working 10-hour shifts, 6 days a week, year-round.
Now, one might be asking, that's weird. Why do we need so many air traffic controllers? And yet, we are setting up a system, or at least people in positions of power and authority are setting up systems that are leading to fewer and fewer air traffic controllers actually working. I can tell you, but you guys aren't going to like the answer. And it's that they are privatizing air traffic controllers and contracting aircraft control towers out to private companies. So that's it. This is the result of a long-term effort to privatize air traffic controllers. It's capitalism. It's quite literally, they are privatizing air traffic control towers in order to wring more money out of what has typically just been a public service to make sure people don't die while they travel. The next step is to use AI. Oh yeah, under a private air traffic control tower, absolutely. Absolutely. And Quigley, you can tell me something that will make the 300,000 shortage seem 100 times worse, 1,000 times worse? What's that?
And sometimes overtime on top of that. It makes it impossible
But yeah, they're working like 60-hour weeks, 10-hour shifts with overtime not accounted for in that number.
to have a regular sleep schedule, or frankly, a life outside of work. Multiple ATCs reported that the schedule was creating stress and anxiety, as well as depression.
ATCs are known for being functional alcoholics. I would have 5 to 6 drinks per night.
Oh my
when I
God.
got home from a shift, I would grab a glass of vodka before my bag even hit the floor. So at what point is it just alcoholics running the FAA? Do we want that?
Ultimately, ATCs across the country are worried that one of these near misses won't be a miss.
I guarantee there will be a collision in the next 3 years.
So why are controllers having to work hours like this? Well, understaffing is a problem that goes back years, or specifically to 1 year.
It's Ronald Reagan when he destroyed the unions.
Dominic was an air traffic controller in the 1980s and a member of PATCO, the union for ATCs. The union had been begging President Carter for improvements to the FAA.
Reagan, when he was running for president, caught on to that. He said,
One might imagine that like a group of people who are single-handedly responsible for making sure all aircraft in the United States don't just end in balls of fire. One would imagine that they should be paid well and treated well and be well rested so that they don't make mistakes because they're tired from working 6 10-hour shifts in a row.
said that, exactly what I said. Too few controllers working too many hours with, antiquated equipment have placed our flight.
Oh boy. So Quigley works with air traffic controllers. There are only 6 people in their facility, one of the largest in the country, that are qualified to pass, fail, and administer the tests for ATC students. That is insane. When we're talking about a need for like 300,000 of these people.
Flying public in jeopardy.
PATCO made the unusual choice to back Ronald Reagan, a Republican, after he sent a letter to the union.
He said that if elected, he would do everything within his power to rectify all his bad problems.
This is why you don't trust Republicans. They will lie to you and then stab you in the back. That's exactly what happened with PATCO.
Many PATCO members knew Reagan as the president of the Screen Actors Guild. He was a union man, but he didn't fool Dominic.
He was a showman. That was it.
I take it that you are a performer?
All hat and no cattle, as they used to say.
A year after Reagan was elected, none of the changes had been made at the FAA.
The minute that he got crowned, he disappeared. After about 8 months of just sitting there saying, we're still working 6-day weeks, we're working overtime, we're burning out, we never got a response after that from the White House.
That's when PATCO voted to strike.
There were 1,500 air traffic controllers there. We were up all night, and we said we're going on strike. You couldn't hear yourself think. It was like the roar of a 737. After about 2 hours, there wasn't an airplane in the sky except Air Force One.
Federal employees in the United States aren't allowed to go on strike. That's been true since the passage of Taft-Hartley in 1947.
Fucking criminal.
You can't sit and negotiate with a union that's in violation of the law.
But no president had ever invoked that part of the act. It was, as one historian we spoke to put it, a gentleman's agreement. The Postal Service had staged a multi-day wildcat strike in 1970, and President Nixon had used firm words.
If the Postmaster General deems it necessary to act in other affected major cities, I will not hesitate to act.
But he didn't go as far as Reagan would.
They are in violation of the law, and if they do not report for work within 48 hours, they have forfeited their jobs and will be terminated.
Reagan laid off the striking air traffic controllers in one day, more than 11,000 of them. He also sent federal marshals to arrest 17 union leaders across the country.
This guy's a legend, Steve Wallet. He was arrested by the federal marshals, brought out in chains, chained to controller.
This has caused cyclical shortages ever since. The real legacy of the strike, though, is the way Reagan successfully tamed the union. Air traffic controllers were essentially silenced into accepting long hours and impossible schedules.
You 20,000 applicants. My job's available. I've been fired. Give it a try. And I'd like to talk to you in about 5 years and see how you feel then.
I think it's impossible.
Yeah, like the thing about this is like the conditions are so bad that these people will literally be like, fuck it, I don't care anymore. Fire me. I don't want this job. It sucks. The working conditions are so bad, you want to try and hire someone else? All right, they're going to burn out just like me. You know, like it's treating people as disposable.
Possible to underestimate how huge the PATCO strike was, not just in aviation circles, but in labor. The Reagan administration deliberately set out to break the labor movement in the United States.
There's something else we need to talk about that a ton of ATCs brought up in our conversation, and that's mental health. The scheduling of the overtime is creating a lot of fatigue and stress. But what about if you just need medication because of life?
We know that safety-sensitive personnel are required to meet certain medical standards to maintain an active operational status.
That's William Hoffman, who studies mental health among pilots and in aviation. Air traffic controllers, because of the nature of their work, are set to very high health standards, both physical and mental.
Right now, the aeromedical screening system in a lot of ways is dichotomous. The personnel is fit to perform their duties or they're not fit to perform their duties. But mental health is more complicated because what we're looking for is more subtle incapacitation. They're not completely incapacitated, but they're maybe not 100% able to perform their duties.
If an ATC has experienced anxiety and depression and wants to go on medication, they temporarily lose their medical clearance and have to take off 6 months to a year to take something as simple as Prozac.
Oh my God.
This can lead—
Oh my God. Okay, no wonder these people are burning out like crazy. They can't even like go and get mental health help. Oh yeah, no, Distron. This video was not put together like within the last day. This was from almost a year ago. Like, this has been an ongoing chronic problem for decades now. And honestly, I view this crash that happened yesterday as a pretty obvious result of, frankly, worsening and exacerbating the shortages.
Lead to self-medication, or what Hoffman calls healthcare avoidance. Multiple ATCs I spoke with mentioned that they use alcohol as a form of medication.
Our study of over 5,000 pilots across North America showed that over 50% reported a history of healthcare avoidance due to fear for losing their certificate. Air traffic controllers find themselves in similar circumstances.
One of the ATCs I talked to, the one who was drinking every night, she eventually left the job for mental health reasons, and she said her drinking fell by 80%.
Oh my God.
It turns out I wasn't an alcoholic, she told me. I was just an air traffic controller.
In 2023, air traffic control suddenly became front page news in the
77% of critical air traffic control facilities staffed below FAA's threshold of 85%. That's insane, dog.
United States. Suddenly, Congress and media and the public are all saying, we need answers. How did this happen? Well, it's not a mystery in many cases. The fact is, we have been understaffed and underfunded and under-resourced at the Federal Aviation Administration for more than 40 years. And quite frankly, in my view, it's shameful.
The FAA is proposing $117 million for training 1,800 additional air traffic controllers for 2024. The Senate recently passed a budget for 3,000 new controllers over the next 5 years, and it's on track for the House. Right now, training isn't keeping pace with retirement, so the FAA also needs to guarantee that the job itself is sustainable for the workers.
And they're not gonna do that. Because, guys, guess what? Congress isn't interested in making these jobs sustainable. They are interested in privatizing them. One of the things coming out of this is a lot of folks are leaking right now to Ken Klippenstein, right? And that includes people who work for the FAA. So here's an airline pilot who leaked to Ken Klippenstein, posted this to, I believe, Blue Sky. It reads, "Hi, Ken. I'm a pilot and received this email from an airport manager about an issue that's been a growing problem for years in the Bay Area and is now growing even worse. San Carlos Airport is an airport within 10 miles of San Francisco International Airport, and it will have no air traffic controllers starting February 1st. The departure route for San Carlos directly overlaps the arrival path of San Francisco. San Carlos also hosts two of the area's largest flight schools. This means you now have a situation where inexperienced pilots will be departing into highly complex airspace using solely their own judgment and reading of charts so as to not collide with aircraft landing at San Francisco. This happened because the airport operates off an FAA contract for staffing controllers rather than the FAA directly providing controllers, that is another way of saying basically they privatized the FAA, the air traffic controller tower at San Carlos. This system has always been tenuous. It was previously not uncommon for the contractor to only provide a single controller for all traffic. There are recordings on YouTube of the tower needing to shut down because the controller had to use the bathroom and no one else was working. Now, a new contractor has underbid the existing and decided to remove cost of living adjustments for staff. All controllers have left, and the new contractor plans to operate the airport with no controllers. This means the pilots need to coordinate with each other instead. I've been disturbed by the operation of contract towers ever since becoming a pilot. During the first Trump administration, I feared what privatization of all air traffic control would bring. After Trump posted about ATC being at fault in last night's mid-air collision in DC, I'm concerned they will use this as a springboard to push for more private towers. Which, by the way, they are absolutely going to do. They're going to say, well, the FAA has been infiltrated by DEI wokeness, and we need to contract out to unwoke private corporations. That's going to be the argument here. They don't need to actually justify any of it. And that's going to lead to a lot of air traffic control towers not having any controllers. And Quigley, who has firsthand knowledge of this, says even the smallest towers really need a minimum of 3 air traffic controllers. And even then, 6 is probably a better number. Which, yeah, that makes sense, because 3 is good at any one given time, but you probably don't have those 3 air traffic controllers working 24/7, you know? They need relief. Oh yeah, Mr. Miyagi, this is the type of decision-making that leads people to dying. You know, the decision to not actually invest in air traffic controllers, not ever since Reagan, has gotten people killed. You know, I would argue that yesterday it got people killed. Let's see. I write this to you to say that this will bring more safety risks, and more people need to understand a real-life example of what chaos a contract tower can create when put in such a busy and complicated airspace. Thank you for your time. Sorry to bother you with an email, but the accident last night has been a tipping point, and I don't know how else to spread awareness. So that is a tip from one airline pilot. Additionally, another pilot sent this to Ken Klippenstein. And I'll throw this up on screen here. SQL, this is from County of San Mateo Airports. SQL Tower will be ATC 0 on February 1st. Beginning on Saturday, February 1st, the San Carlos Federal Contract Tower will be unstaffed, ATC 0. The airport, in collaboration with SCAPA and SCFC, has been in continuous communication with the FAA regarding the transition of air traffic service providers for the San Carlos Federal Contract Tower. This morning, we were informed by FAA headquarters that the SQL Tower will be unstaffed, ATC 0, starting Saturday, February 1st. The FAA has awarded a new contract for air traffic services at SQL to Robinson Aviation, RVA. However, the contract does not include locality pay to account for the high cost of living in the San Francisco Bay Area. As a result, RVA's employment offers to current SQL controllers were significantly lower than their current compensation under SERCO. Basically, meaning that the contractor underbid without the ability to actually pay any of the people who currently work at the tower, meaning that they would be unable to actually make a living and continue to live in their homes. Like, it's insane that this is even legal in the first place. Profits over people every step of the way. Corporations have looted this country. Let's see. Understandably, all current controllers have declined RVA offers. Our controller's last day at SQL will be Friday, January 31st. If you have the chance, please thank them for the excellent service they provided at SQL for the past year. Given that the FAA is ultimately responsible for ensuring air traffic services at SQL, we requested temporary FAA staffing for the tower, a solution currently being implemented at Eagle Airport in Colorado during its transition from Serco to RVA. However, the FAA informed us this morning that they will not provide temporary personnel for SQL. Insane. Insane.
Cutting safety regulations may lead to immediate disasters occurring, but they do accelerate the likelihood of one occurring.
Oh, absolutely, Andrew S. And thank you for the $5 super chat. So, yeah, you might ask yourself, hey, why is all of this happening? Like, what precipitated this series of events? And one of the things that happened that a lot of folks aren't talking too much about is that Elon Musk forced the head of the FAA to resign. Let me throw this up for you guys. Ah, god damn it. Daily Beast, you piece of shit. I take that back. Your reporting is really good. I just don't have a subscription. Here we go. Very knifey duck. Thank you for the $5
So at what point
dono.
can we consider deporting people by plane to be a credible death threat?
But yeah, the FAA is facing a major crisis without a leader because Elon Musk pushed him out. Michael Whitaker stepped down as FAA administrator on January 20th, the day of Donald Trump's inauguration, after clashing with Elon Musk, whose company SpaceX is regulated by the agency. Musk publicly called on Whitaker to resign after the FAA fined SpaceX for failing to get approval for launch changes. And now the power vacuum at the agency is coming into sharp focus after an Army helicopter collided with an American Airlines jet Wednesday evening in Washington, D.C., killing everyone on board. And, yeah, this is damning. This is damning right here. I was looking for this clip earlier.
You're an acting FAA director?
That is the Secretary of Transportation there, being asked, is there an acting FAA director, and simply continuing to walk away.
Are trying to stack air traffic control with corporate toadies so that he can more easily restrict air travel out of the country. Am I being paranoid?
Yes, you are being paranoid. It is not to restrict travel out of the country. It is very specifically because his billionaire benefactor wanted to understaff and, undersupply and, behead the FAA for fining his company. It's just a capitalist asserting his power over a governmental body that would otherwise prove a roadblock to his ambitions and his profits. It has less to do with restricting the flow of people going out, and more to do with making sure that he can still get those sweet government contracts to shoot things into space. Okay. So, yeah, the billionaire Elon Musk is not stepping in so that he can trap people in America. He's stepping in because he wants to make another $10 billion. He's stepping in because he wants to abuse U.S. airspace, and like fuck around with the EPA and all that kind of stuff. You know, this is what billionaires invest into politicians for. It's just that he's been able to do it in such a way that he's effectively the real president, you know? That's effectively what's happening. And thank you for the $10 super chat, One-Eyed Heathen. I very, very, very much appreciate it. Yeah, no, he's leeching off of the US government. His entire net worth, guys, is related to the government contracts he gets. Is it any wonder that he then invests in having a say over what the government actually does? Well, then, Von 400, you know, I don't think we need the CCP to make, you know, billionaires disappear. I mean, obviously there are ways to do it. You know, like Luigi Mangione demonstrated that. I'm not saying anyone should do that, but I am saying that, like, you're saying like that's like as if the CCP is the only one that's ever like gotten rid of rich people. Gestures at historical revolution, you know? Yeah, so what actually happened here is not, you know, oh, there was a black pilot, or there was a, you know, Latino, like a queer Latino transgender air traffic controller, and they were simply unqualified because of extensive DEI programs that meant that they got jobs that should have gone to deserving white people instead, which is the conservative narrative around all of this. No, what happened was Ronald Reagan, a conservative who is held up on a pedestal by conservatives, ended the entire fight of air traffic controllers for decent living wages and living conditions and working conditions, and instead they've been languishing silently, well, not more or less silently, for the last, you know, 45 years. So, like, yeah, it didn't get better while people ignored that problem. And despite there being a hullabaloo about it in 2023, no one did anything about it. So it's still understaffed. They're still not getting the funding they need. And in the meantime, what's ending up happening is that in order to get more funding and presumably, in theory, get more air traffic controllers, they're privatizing the air traffic control towers. And those private air traffic control towers simply result in like all of the air traffic controllers leaving because they're being paid less. It's a shitty job and they're getting paid even shittier. So the real reason that this is happening is because Republicans do not respect or want workers to be paid what they are worth. They do not want workers to have living wages. They want air traffic controllers to basically function as computers. But the problem is, computers can't do what they do. They just can't, at least not right now. And so, in the meantime, we should probably pay the people that ensure we get from point A to point B while flying through the air in tin cans that are going 700 miles per hour. We should probably pay those people, you know, a decent living wage and make sure that there are enough of them on staff that they haven't worked, you know, 6 or 7 10-hour days in a row. You know, maybe we should ensure that. Maybe we should allow them to get mental health care that they need instead of becoming alcoholics. That doesn't seem like a good combo. So, yeah. Did DEI do this? No. It was capitalism. And you can put that capitalism at the feet of both Republicans and Democrats. Because guess what? Joe Biden was just in office for 4 years. He didn't fix this. And it's not surprising that a horrific tragedy occurred as a result of this consistent capitalistic negligence. It is an inevitable result of this system that prioritizes profits over people And when a system does that, death follows.